My name is Carlos Bilal. I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. And since we ending Black History Month and about to begin Ramadan, I'm going to connect the two because it ties in. What I'm about to show you is not only Black history, but also Islamic history and also American history. And if you know anything about Charleston, we led the United States with the most slaves imported from Africa. They say 40% of the Africans that was involved inside the transatlantic slave trade was dropped off here in Charleston. And with that being said, the countries that majority of these Africans came from was Mali, Senegal, the Gambia, Muslim majority countries. And there's a stigma amongst black men that become Muslims here in America, saying that most black American men become Muslims in prison. And, just to show you that Islam always been within the black sector here inside the United States, due to the fact that we had the most Africans that was concentrated here in this particular city, in this particular state. And they wasn't allowed to practice their religion. So they had to go underground to practice their religion. For a period of time, they stripped every religion and African spirituality away from the blacks. So they wasn't even allowed to practice Christianity. But when they allowed them to practice Christianity, even the people that remained Muslim and held on to their Islam, they had to do it in secret, and they had to do it going underground, which meaning they couldn't pray in open. And they had to, when it was time to fast during Ramadan, they had to lighten up on the work production, or it was another enslaved black that would help them with their workload. Or they would rotate. One Muslim would fast one day, the next day, the next Muslim would fast. So they would take turns. And even with the non-Muslim slaves, they would help out the Muslim slaves. But this is an example. If you know anything about the oneness of God, the Tawheed, this is a sign of Tawheed right here on one of these tombstones. If you could see it, you see they got the one finger up, and you see the one finger right there. That's representing the Tawheed, the oneness of God. And I would say this grave is different from the one that you would see that has a cross on it, because some of these tombstones has a cross on it to signify their religion. And let me show you one, for example. This one has our Father written on it. So the difference between this one and that one, you see the year 1804. He died in 1876. He was able to see freedom as a black man before he died. So that's very important, because some of these enslaved blacks wasn't able to see freedom when they died. And this whole wall is lined up with enslaved blacks' graves. And this is, in the parking lot of a church. This side was where the blacks was buried. The side in front of the church is where the whites was buried. And the reason why they did that, the city of Charleston wouldn't allow blacks to be buried in city limits. So this church was the first church that allowed the blacks to be buried in city limits. So that's very awesome. But also, they was burying Muslims there. And this is another one that has sacred written on it. So the years may vary. So I don't want to really go into details with that. But if you can see this tombstone, it has the one finger pointing in the air. His name is Casey Poyce. And that's very amazing, because there's always a stigma with black men going to jail and becoming Muslim. But no. And you're talking about the transatlantic slave trade ended in 1808, which meaning it was illegal for them to bring slaves from the west coast of Africa or any parts of Africa to the New World. But they did it. They did it secretly. But this was not only a first generation Muslim, Casey Porras was a second-generation Muslim, which saying that he practiced Islam and probably his father practiced Islam. And there are some other graves, because I haven't been out here in a while, and I know nature is taking its course, is growing, overgrowing the tombstones and stuff. But I saw one time where it was a female with a Muslim name out here, if I could find her name. Her name was Elmina, which named after one of the towns in Ghana. And at that time, it was also filled with a lot of Muslims. That's Amina. So we'll run up on it. But just to let you know that this entire wall is a wall filled with enslaved blacks. And some got the chance to see freedom before they died, and some haven't. Some didn't. So just to shed some light on that, like this name right here, Alice Amina. She was a young girl that died in 1854. She was at the age of 2 years old. And, this is Alice Amina. And, we know the name Amina is one of the towns that's located in Ghana. And it was a majority populated town prior to the transatlantic slave trade. So that just let us know that if she was associated with a name, that's where she's from, and her family, could probably trace their lineage back to that location. Like this right here, this is a cross, 1904. They don't have the year, 30 years old, so they was probably born in 1864. So they was probably born as a free child, so which is a blessing for them. But just to put that in perspective,